Hello everyone, my name is Tim. I'm 19 years old and extremely rich. When people see me driving my sports car, flying first class, and wearing designer clothing, they always wonder, how did such a young guy become so ridiculously rich? Some people assume that my parents buy me everything. Others imagine that I'm a YouTube star. One guy even thought that I won the lottery. I never tell people how I got my millions because I'm actually very ashamed, and maybe I'm even technically a criminal. But I have to tell someone the truth, or else I might lose my mind. So listen up. It all started when I was 16 years old and worked at a summer camp as a junior camp counselor. My summer camp was not a normal camp. It was a camp for poor kids who came from bad families and dangerous places in the city. The buildings were run down, the kitchen was staffed by people who just left prison, and the area behind the cabins would flood with septic tanks spill when it would rain. But for the summer, it was my home. The beautiful thing about this particular camp was that you'd get to live with people who you'd never cross paths with in normal life, sharing everything with them for weeks at a time. We always had several counselors from Europe mixed with African American kids from the city and a few white poor kids from the suburbs. The camp proved that things like race and religion don't have to separate people. We're all the same when we were there. On the other hand, working at this camp also presented many challenges for me. The kids who I looked after came from very difficult homes. Some of them never even left the city. One day, we were all playing freeze tag with the campers. Freeze tag is like normal tag, except for when the counselor yells, "Freeze!" everyone needs to stop, or else you're out. I called out, "Freeze!" but caught one kid who was still moving and shouted at him, "You're out!" I exclaimed. He contested that I was wrong, and when I still told him he was out, he chucked a huge rock at my head, sending me right to the nurse's office. These types of situations occurred on a daily basis, which also made the work there very stressful. The other difficult thing about working at the camp was that you were only allowed to leave once a week, and you only had a 2-hour break every second evening. So even a normal person could get a little crazy under those circumstances. One evening, I felt that I could not handle the stress any longer and decided to take a walk alone down the back road near the cabins that were not in use. What I did next was very unexpected. For no reason at all, I picked up a rock and I chucked it right through the window. The sound of that shattering glass was therapeutic and exciting, but also extremely naughty. I grabbed another rock and smashed another window. I just kept throwing rocks until every window on the building was broken. Then I caught my breath and I thought, what have I just done? When I returned back to my cabin and went to bed, I started to worry that someone would discover my crime and that I'd get into big trouble. Generally speaking, I was the most trusted counselor at the camp. Whenever other counselors did something wrong, I'd actually snitch on them and tell the administration. One time, my good friend snuck out of the cabin in the middle of the night to meet with his friends, which was against the rules. So I did the right thing by reporting his bad behavior to the administration first thing the next morning. He immediately got fired. Anyways, the day after I broke the windows, I could see police cars at the camp, and we didn't see the administration at flag raising. So I knew that they had already noticed the broken windows. I started to feel nervous beyond imagination. I wondered what would happen to me if I got caught. Would I get fired? Would everyone hate me? Or would I even go to jail? To my amazement, nothing happened that day. No one even mentioned the window breaking. so I swore that I would never do it again. For the next few days, I started to feel this strange temptation, this crazy urge to go outside and do something against the rules. I wondered, was the stress getting to me again? Was I losing my mind? Finally, I couldn't take it any longer. I snuck outside and walked up to the most beautiful building in the entire camp. They called this building the Funkier. I picked up the largest rock that I could find, and before I even realized what had happened, I heard that blissful sound of shattering glass. What I did not realize was that the police had set up cameras to catch the window-breaking criminal. In what seemed like a matter of seconds, police came. I was driven to the city and thrown in jail. Not only was I arrested, but my parents were so upset that when they picked me up from jail, they drove me directly to an orphanage and said that I was disowned. My parents claimed that despicable window-breaking teenagers were not welcome under their roof, and I never heard from them again. Life in the orphanage was difficult. I was lonely, and I desperately regretted my decision to break those windows. But then, something unthinkable happened. I was adopted. When my new parents picked me up, we went directly from the orphanage to the airport, which I thought was quite strange. And then, we boarded a private jet, and I was flown to one of their many mansions in Hawaii. When we got home, they immediately threw my orphanage clothing in the garbage, and they dressed me in fancy designer clothing. They bought me 3 cars and gave me $1 million a year in allowance. I still felt a little sad about my old family, but after some long contemplation, I came to the conclusion that becoming rich was the best thing to ever happen to me, and that I loved my new parents more than my old ones. Turns out, money can buy happiness. My new parents were extremely successful business people who were always too busy to have children. They needed someone to leave their empire to, and when they heard about me in the orphanage, they decided that if I was bold enough to break windows, I would make a pretty great millionaire. And that is how I became extremely rich, by breaking windows.